village kids' life skills. Thank you once again, Sandeep. The floor is yours. Looking forward to your views.
Thank you. That was quite an inspiring introduction you gave there about what being an aspirational Indian is about. I have a presentation which I'm not sure if we can put up here. Is that possible?
We can. Yes, yes, yes.
Great. So I was given a clicker. Okay, great. It works. Okay, fantastic. So look, I'm actually going to start a little bit back in time, because I think that when we think about the future of India and we think about the aspirations and where we want it to go, I think I wanted to take a step back first and think about where we've been. And I think that if I go back and look, in time, India has been a leader in the timeline of the world, where we came up with a lot of things here, whether it was games or cultivation of agriculture in certain ways, or even things like diamond cutting. We were known to be at the forefront of technology, and it has been a position that as a country we have embraced, cherished, and actually nurtured and grown with. And I think that extends even to things like education, where we were, again, creating lots of advances in mathematics. Even if you look at what Einstein had to say, we owe a lot to Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made. I mean, there again, at the very beginnings of it all, we have been driving innovation, driving change, and actually, interestingly, even on the fashion side. And this ranges from looking at what Queen Victoria may have worn after coming to India and taken forth as breeches that they wear now on polo fields around the world, or to even someone like Zara taking our typical lungi and trying to sell it as a $90 piece of cloth. And so these advances have existed and continue to exist. And I think that a fair amount of our strength comes from our traditions. And you can see here that it's interesting. I think one of the outcomes of the pandemic is that people are going to care a lot more about where your products come from. So your provenance will make a big difference. And so therefore, the idea to know that our locally sourced products were able to actually survive and thrive during this period. And I think that there will be a turn towards more of that as we move ahead. And we can talk more about that as we go. And these things have also been exported even on the health side, whether it is haldi doodh now becoming golden milk, which is sold at some ridiculous price in the market out there, or whether it's yoga and pranayama and fasting, which have all been embraced. So we have a deep history of it. And I think I really like this quote by a well-traveled individual, Mark Twain, who said, "India is the cradle of the human race, the birthplace of human speech, the mother of history, the grandmother of legend, and the great-grandmother of tradition. Our most valuable and most constructive materials in the history of man are treasured up in India alone." So this is not a new idea. This is an old idea. And I think that if anything, we've a bit lost our place in this. And so as we think about the aspiration, at least from my perspective for a new India, it would be to reclaim a little bit of this. And the path to reclaiming it, I think, needs to also take into account where we may have gone off track. I think somewhere along the way, we got to believe that the West had the perfect model. And this idea that our brands had to be named Western brands, we had to eat Western food, we had to even change the apparel that we wear and that had very functional use in a sari and make it look different. Evolution and iteration is fine, but aping a model that's not necessarily clear that it's working isn't the most logical answer. And I think that we can see that. In the West, if you look at it now, healthcare is out of control in terms of cost, education is out of control in terms of cost. Actually, these are two sectors, anecdotally, where government expenditure has been the most in the Western markets, yet the price increase has been the highest in these. So I mean, that's a separate topic and a separate discussion that we can have about where and how we control these things. But what I mean to say is they just haven't figured it out. And I think that we need to find our own models for this. And I think it's also interesting to note, given the world situation, that if we were to consume, if the rest of the world were to consume the way the US does, it would require 7 Earths to support that consumption. And I think that that's where we're at war at a more macro level between the laws of economics that are demanding a certain level of growth and the laws of the environment that are demanding a certain amount of conservation. And I think that ultimately we have to recognize that the environment is going to win and they have their own way of fighting back. And so this is going to be a challenge. So now let's bring this back to the context of India. India, as we currently know it, is a very fragmented world, whether it's the number of states, the number of cuisines, the number of fabrics, the number of political parties, whatever have you. We live in a world of fragmentation. And that actually can be a strength. And I think we should recognize and appreciate it for what it is, and try to think about how to use it to our advantages. It's a market that is too unique for a copy-paste approach. I mean, I think the colors and the vibrancy and all of that bring out a certain uniqueness that, again, when we look at it, requires us to think about things in a new and different way. We also deal with things differently. This was a project that I actually had the pleasure of getting involved with, which was called the Corona Quilt Project here in Bombay, where these guys actually just out of the desire to do something and to make a statement and bring people together, took thousands of pieces of quilt and put up these huge installations around the city. So again, just a different approach, a different way of looking at stuff. Now, in my vision of a new India, I think that we will see an integration of tradition, technology, and sustainability. And all three are important. I think I noted down what you were saying in terms of economic development, aspiration, and caring. And I think that these are different ways of saying similar things. I think that we need to be mindful of the people around us. If I look at it, we see businesses that are doing a great job of this. We see people going into the villages, trying to extract the art that is really interesting coming out of there. We see a platform like Zen that is actually going in using technology to help bring out some of these products that people are making, find them a global market. This is the great thing about technology that actually exists today, is that it's no longer the large company's advantage to have accessibility to reaching customers or the tools to be able to scale. It comes down to the small consumers as well. And I think that as we think about the world, we really look at these as two levers. How do you think about technology, which really enables you to either produce more effectively, market differentially, or acquire customers in a more effective way, or distribute, sorry, in a more effective way, and brand that really allows you to extract greater value for what you're making. I think that we're at a juncture where Indian companies and companies across the range, and I'm not just saying large companies, even small companies, have the opportunity to really enhance and build their brand and stand for something that I think hasn't happened in the past. And we see this in a country, in a market where if you look at this shipping label here, it says 448 Cholak Mala Mandir, Mandir ke samne aate ye phone laga. You know, you can understand, it's not an address. It's not an address with a PIN code. Now, in that world, you're trying to give people the ability to deliver products right to your doorstep. You have to think about it differently. You have to think about the customer base differently. We have to look at different demographics. They're going to be premium users, mixed users, value seekers. We're going to have to see solutions then that come out differently. Now, you look at this, and the thing that struck me here is that Dunzo, in full disclosure, is a portfolio company of ours, and I tend to talk about our companies just because I know them better and I know the numbers. But if you look at this, if I look at what the traditional world was, it was let me buy large amounts of product and let me try to figure out how to get customers to buy large amounts of products and keep it at home. The realities of urban centers that we live in, our houses are small, our kitchens are small, our fridges are small. We want to replenish regularly. We're used to that system. We're used to the Kirana shop giving us products. We don't want this system of buying bulk and taking it. The West designed massive, fantastic models around this. Costco did this, lots of other places did this. Now, what we want here is a situation that leverages technology, thinks about this, and actually brings people what they need. We have an opportunity to actually even think about marrying this tradition with new business models that have no inventory. Here again is an example of a business where we said, look, we want to reach people in the various tier 4 and tier 5 cities of the country and give them access to a branded product that they don't otherwise get. I'm conscious of time. Am I going long on this? Do you need me to cut this off?
No, you can carry on. You can carry on.
Okay, I just have a couple more slides, and then I'm actually very interested to hear the other discussions and what other people have for this. So, because I honestly know this story. It's more interesting for me to hear the other one. So, look, I think that from an aspiration standpoint, you're able to build a brand in a digital market, which actually allows us to reach consumers differently, creates no inventory, changes the very economics of this. Today, we don't make anything until someone orders it, which means there's no wastage. And we've applied this in other businesses as well, which I'll talk about in a second. Coming back to fragmentation, I mean, here again, if you decided to ape the West, you would go about it and turn around and say, let me put a McDonald's on every corner of the city. Now, the reality is we don't have the rental cost base that allows for that. Instead, this was a perfect market for cloud kitchens to emerge in. Here, people have different tastes in different corners of the country. With a cloud kitchen network, you have one infrastructure that you can leverage to provide different cuisines from one place, get the cost savings, yet give people what they want where they want it. And again, a model that has been built for the unique aspects of India and is now being exported elsewhere. We're, again, I think, showing that we're going to be at the forefront of innovation. Similarly, on the apparel side, I talked about Zara before. One of the biggest issues with the fashion industry has been the massive waste it creates. Let me sell you a 70 rupee shirt and let it last for 3 weeks and then come back and buy another 70 rupee shirt. Let me see how I can bring the 70 rupees down to 50 rupees and get you to buy it every 3 weeks instead. This is a game that's terrible for the world around us and terrible for the environment. What if I can instead get you to be very invested in the product that you make, give you a high quality piece of clothing that will stay with you, and I make it only when you order it, so I don't have to worry about wasting anything. These are models that I think are exciting, that are going to shape the new India that we're all looking forward to. So look, for us, I really do believe that India has an opportunity to lead the world in a future model of consumption. We can leverage our years of knowledge, centuries of knowledge, and adopt cutting edge technology while being mindful of the world around us. We can set the direction for what it will be, and that is honestly my desire for what India will become, and we're playing our small role by trying to find the entrepreneurs that are creating this.
Great, great. One question I have to ask you, in the current fundraising environment, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to raise funds right now? Everyone would love to hear from you regarding that.
You know, I think that environments come and go, and markets change. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's not. As of this morning, it's extremely hot, and we can see that there's a lot happening within the tech world. I would say my consistent advice would be very clear about your product proposition, understand why you should exist, have a differentiated view on how you understand the customer, do everything you possibly can before you raise money and demonstrate that you've done that. So whether that means building out every financial model, building out the metric sheets that you have. The Room founder, just as an example, when he first came and talked to us, he had spreadsheets that you wouldn't believe for a business that didn't exist. And he was already ready to measure everything. He's just, I just need the money to start the transactions, which you feel really good about because you know they're ready to start being evaluated and measuring things. So my advice would be that. The second category I would say is be tenacious. I think that this is it's a hard road, and showing that you're tenacious, showing that you have the ability to take feedback and come back at it again. I'm not saying don't respect a no if it happens, but at the same time, understand how to evolve from there and come back with something that might catch someone's attention again. It's not an easy road. The market might seem hot, and therefore you might think I should get money tomorrow. But nonetheless, I would say I think that while you might get today's money easily, you might not get tomorrow. So these are ideas to keep in mind.
And since like you've donned the hat of an investor and an entrepreneur, one piece of advice you'd give to young students to succeed in the absolutely dynamic business environment, you know, which is prevalent today?
Well, I think a simple one again would be to listen. There's a lot of listening that has to happen. I think that many people talk about doing, and we can have that conversation about work hard, execute, hire team, A people, hire A people, B people, hire C people, this kind of stuff. But I would actually say that the need of the hour, in my opinion, is to cultivate skills of listening. You're going to hear a lot from your employees. You're going to hear a lot from the customers. You're going to hear a lot from partners. Don't always follow everything. Have your ways of your conviction. But I think that being a good listener is imperative to being successful as an entrepreneur.
Great, great. And any skills which you think would be the most critical? Like maybe any two skills you would say would be absolutely critical to have?
Storytelling, number one. We have a slide. It's not in this presentation, but there's a quote that says, "Stories beat spreadsheets." And I think that is the case. You can captivate someone, interest them, engage them. You get them with the story. You don't get them with a financial model that's a dream and a hope and whatever. You get them to feel the pain that you understand.
That's a lovely quote. That's a lovely quote. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Mansi ji?
Yes.